Right, today we're going to SD 44.10. That is the Kula Garani Sutta. And this is, the meaning is the discourse on the house-mistress of good family. S 9.8. It is also known as Ogalha Sutta, the discourse on having plunged. Here Ogaha means something like getting started or going ahead with our practice, our spiritual practice. Here the theme is the happiness of an arhat, or someone who's practicing to be an arhat. Such people may be with the world, but they are not of the world. In other words, they may be present here, they may actually be teaching the dāna, talking to people, helping people, but they are not worldly. It's a very short sutta, it's hardly a page, but it tells us some very interesting thing about this wonderful person who's able to practice in a very happy way without any obstruction at all. I will read through the sutta, explain it, and then see if there's any additional comments to make. The discourse on the house-mistress of good family. Now, first of all, the word Kula Garani. Okay, this is not a very common word. The word Kula, of course, is quite well known. Kula means family, but here it's used as an adjective. It means coming from a good family, someone who's cultured and so on. For example, we have the word Kula Putta, right, son of family. Garani here means someone with a house, a gara. Here, apparently, this word Garani is feminine, refers to a woman who owns a house. So this word Garani is a kind of feminine equivalent to Gahapati, for example. Yeah? Gahapati usually refers to a man, house lord who owns a house. So, in other words, here we have a woman who is quite independent, quite rich, and in this case she's a very good person. We are not given her name here, but she shows very great compassion and support for someone who's practicing the dāna. S 9.8. On one occasion, a certain monk was dwelling in a certain jungle grove in Kosala. Right? So this is a very general statement. We don't know exactly where, but it's one of those forest monks. And obviously this lady is living not too far away from where the monk is practicing. Now at that time, that monk was dwelling intimately involved with a certain family. Okay. Now even though the sutta says intimately involved, it doesn't mean in any kind of socializing way. It means he's close to the family in terms of accepting alms. Okay, and later on, the next few paragraphs will tell us the situation here. So here the Pali word is ativela. Okay, intimately involved, close to a certain family. Maybe we can use the word very close to a certain family, if you like. He was dwelling closely involved with a certain family. Then a deity who was staying in the jungle grove felt compassion for that monk, desiring his good. Wishing to arouse a sense of urgency in that monk, he assumed the form of the house-mistress of good family. So here we have this deva appearing as this lady to sort of warn this monk, says not to be too involved, to be too close with the family. Then he approached that monk and he addressed him in verse thus. Okay, so here we have this verse is spoken by the deva. Nadi tiresu santani sabasu ratyasu cha jana sangam mantenti mancha tancha king antaranti. On the river banks, on the river bank, in the rest house, in the meeting halls, and along the carriage paths, people meeting one another wonder about what's going on with you and I. Right, so here is the lady who's talking, right? It's like telling the monk, do you think you're too close to the family? But the commentary explains that here, this monk is a good monk. He's not really socializing. It's just that because he's so calm and his decorum is very pleasing and his practice is serious, this lady, this house owner, is very impressed with him. So, of course, she was offering alms to him, but then she decided that she's going to offer alms on a permanent basis. In other words, to give nicca dāna, to give alms regularly to this practicing monk. And because of this kind of support, this monk is able to live quite comfortably with his practice, and he attained arhathood in no long time. So it's an ideal situation, when I'm speaking. But there's a deva here who's like a kind of busybody deva, and says, oh dear, this monk is too involved, too close to the family, and it's kind of telling the monk, don't be too close to involved. So this is the story so far. Then the monk replies. The monk replies in 2 verses. Bahu hi saddha pachuha kamitaba tapasina natena manku hotabang hitena kilisati. Many other words that sound contrary that an ascetic must be patient with. One should not be troubled by that, for one is not defiled on that account. Right? So here the monk tells the deva, or tells this deva in the form of the lady of the house, says, well, you can hear people gossip, people talk a lot of things which are troubling to hear, but don't really be bothered with them. As long as you are calm, then you wouldn't be bothered with them. Yoja satta paritasi vaneka vatameko yatha lahu chitto ti tangahu nassa sampajjate vatanti. But if one is shaken by sounds like an antelope in the forest, then one is said to be soft-hearted. One's vows or practice is not accomplished. So basically saying we should not be moved by gossips and idle talk and so on. So he's also referring to the idea that living in the forest, we must keep the precepts well, we have to show lots of loving kindness so that we are not frightened at the slightest sound. This is, of course, here we can recall the Bhaya Bhairava Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha talks about how fear and dread can arise in monks who are not morally virtuous, who are not prepared to live the forest life. So, I mean, once you go and live in the forest, you find it's a quiet place, it's remote, you're all by yourself. So you have to be really not only physically prepared, you must also be mentally and spiritually prepared and spiritually strong to live in such a place. And if you do that, then you can quickly progress in such an ideal environment. So that is the sutta is very short. So what does the sutta teach us? It shows that on some occasions, if you're a practitioner, as a monk especially, or even as a lay person, a full-time Buddhist worker, you may find people help you and things are just right, okay? Which is well and good, of course. But then again, we have to remind ourselves what we are there for. We don't become monks and nuns, we don't renounce the world, we don't become full-time lay Buddhist workers just to raise funds or to earn a living for that matter. In other words, yes, we do need funds, we do need the four supports. We need clothing, food, shelter, and health. And insofar as we need those things, yes, it's important for us to get support for those kind of things. And of course, in our own times, we need some funds to do our work, maybe run a website or print books and have our various projects. So in other words, as a lay Buddhist worker, we need to manage our work and our funds properly, but we should not get carried away, we should not get lost in the worldliness of it all, in other words. So, because if we do get lost in the worldliness, then the purpose of the work is lost, in other words. The idea of learning the Dharma is to be happy, and in being happy to be an example to others. By our mere presence, our personality, our joy and peace, people can feel that, can see that, and they feel good about it. Of course, this is not always easy in our times, because let's say we live in a big city, you find maybe people have certain ideas and standards, they look up to certain kinds of people. So we have to work a little harder to show them how important the Dharma is, what is the true Dharma. Unlike, say, 50 years ago, when it is so difficult to even get a good book on Buddhism. Today we are spoiled for choice. So many kinds of books, so many teachers, so many websites. So this is where we have to work really hard to show people the simplicity, efficacy, the goodness of the true teaching, the teaching of early Buddhism, the quest for the historical Buddha. In other words, there are many other forms of Buddhism. They are fine as Dharma dolls, but we cannot stay there too long because they are mostly philosophy and cultural traditions. We can still practice them and enjoy the celebrations, the holidays. It's a kind of a social level kind of activity. But always remember, what is the Dharma about? It is for us to cultivate ourselves as individuals. So that aspect must never be forgotten, despite everything. So to understand the Dharma is what ultimately liberates us. If we forget that, then we get caught up with the crowd, and crowds tend to follow one another and go in the wrong way and meet with terrible disaster, and that won't be good. So even if we notice the crowd is going the wrong way, we should get out of the crowd and go in the right direction, in other words. This sutta also, in a way, reminds us that as monks, we have to remember, as monks and nuns, we have to remember why we have renounced the world. It doesn't mean the moment we put on the robes means we are legitimate renunciants without making an effort to let go of the world. You find in an urbanized society like Singapore, the renunciants can easily forget what they are there for. So we have lots of problematic situations where most of the monks are very wealthy and living comfortably, but very few of them, or most of them, cannot even give a proper Dhamma talk, is unable to lead meditation, they don't themselves meditate, and they socialize a lot, and there's a lot of emphasis on social work, not so much because it is a good thing to do, but because it is something that will attract a crowd, attract funds. So this can be very troubling development. Perhaps here is where we can see the situation as something called the Bodhisattva complex. It's a term that came to me when I look at the situation, because we have this term called the God complex, where people think they are God, that they're not wrong, and whatever they do is right, and they're above the law, and they can do no wrong, right? So the Bodhisattva complex is a little more tricky, where a person can feel that they are compassionate by doing all kinds of social work and so on, and yet they do not have to keep the precepts. That it's okay to do good as much as you can. It doesn't matter even if you break the precepts. Right? We have the famous story, the notorious story, modern Zen story, by one of those Japanese scholars who invented this story and said that there were two monks, a Zen monk and a Vinaya monk, who were walking along, and then they saw this woman who was struggling in the water, going to drown. And according to the storyteller, the Vinaya monk just say, "Oh, what a pity, this woman is drowning." And according to the story, the Zen monk jumps in and saves the woman. And then the story goes, this is the story, okay? The Vinaya monk feels very unhappy, walks unhappily, and then finally couldn't keep his silence, and then in the middle of the night tells the Zen monk, "Why do you touch this woman? You're not supposed to do that." Then the Zen monk says, "Oh, I have left that woman at the riverside, but you are still carrying that woman in your head." It's a very clever story for not so clever people, unfortunately. Because if you really think carefully, there's something seriously wrong with this story. Vinaya monks do not stand by the river and say, "Oh, poor woman, she's drowning." The Vinaya monk knows that in this kind of situation, even if he helps the woman to be saved, and there are many ways of helping this woman, it is the right thing to do. It's not against the Vinaya to help a drowning woman, for example. So here, this is a polemical story to promote one kind of Buddhist against another kind of Buddhist. So this is a totally wrong spirit. It's a bad story, very simply put, where it's okay to do anything, even something wrong, if it appears good in the eyes of the public. So this is an example of the Bodhisattva complex, where someone feels that, I'm a modern monk, so I can have lots of money and I can have cars, I can do what I like, as long as I do Buddhist work, whatever Buddhist work means. And they feel that they can do anything they like, and there's no wrong they can do. They're above the law, and they don't care what people, when people criticize them. They don't even really know the Dharma, and not to say the Vinaya too. So this can be really seriously problematic, because it shows that this kind of monastic has not observed the nisaya, the tutelage, the training. And a lot of people are easily fooled by exteriors. They look at the robes and they think, "Oh, this must be a good monk." And then this monk can perform all kinds of stunts and all kinds of public shows and so on. So this gives a very wrong impression to the public. So this is where, if we really know Buddhism, we should not encourage such things or be involved in any way with such kind of wrong conduct. This is definitely not what the Sutta is telling us. The Sutta is saying you must practice the dāna in all sincerity and industry, and when the conditions are right, it's really wonderful. So remember, there are many ways to go to a suffering state. If we take up the monastic life, taking all those vows, and we don't keep to them, the suttas say we are like thieves of the Dharma. We're only pretending to be renunciants, but we are not. And the Buddha goes, his commentary says, it says if someone has wrong views from another religion and he fails the religion, he gives up the religion, it's like falling from a donkey, falling from an ass. But if you are a Buddhist monk or nun and you claim to be practicing the Dharma, but you don't, It's like falling from an elephant, and it's really bad. You can hurt yourself. So here again, it is very important to remember why we are ordained and why we practice the Dharma. We practice the Dharma for our own self-understanding, to understand the difficulties we are facing, our personal problems, and how we can correct the situation, become a happier person. And in that way, we help people, and not to treat the role as a kind of a business opportunity. If we do that, then of course it's wrong livelihood. So here, once again, the Sutta reminds us that you can practice the Dharma and you can practice it happily. And the right conditions can come and help you, and then you feel you're doing the right thing all the way, and you benefit for your own personal development, and you benefit other people also. So this is a reflection for this sutta. And now let us close with a short reflection. Today, with the Dharma still present in our midst, we have to make every effort to understand the sutta by practicing it. The best way to protect and to propagate the Dharma is through our peaceful minds, to experience and taste the joy and peace of the Dharma through our personal example. And then through teaching this Dharma with joy and wisdom, so that other people are inspired to practice too. Everything else is secondary. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma, but above such karma, may we be well and happy in this life itself, especially when we do Dharma work. And also, by the various good deeds we have done, may we aspire to attain spiritual liberation, especially stream winning in this life itself. In this moment of peace too, let us send out our loving kindness to all those people who are struggling to practice the Dharma, to all our friends and relatives, may they be well and happy, and to all beings, especially those whom the Dharma have not touched, that they may see the Dharma and realize the truth for themselves. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.